Year 3. This is your maths video for Monday, the 25th of January. Now, what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be measuring and comparing different volumes and capacities, and I'll go into that in a little bit of more detail in a minute. Now, what I'd like you to do first of all, I've set you a my maths activity, so I'd like you to have a look at that, and I'd like to see all the different units of measurements that we can use overall. Once you've done that, you can carry on watching this video. Okay, so pause it and off you go. So to continue in maths, what we're going to do is we are going to be looking at measuring in milliliters. Now, milliliters is something that you can measure liquid in. We have milliliters, which is the smaller amounts. We have centiliters, which is the slightly bigger. Then we have liters. So let's have a look. So it says here, sort these containers into those that hold litres and those that hold milliliters. Now we need to remember milliliters are the ones that hold the smaller amounts. So we have things like medicine. Medicine is in milliliters. You might have food colouring. Food colouring is in milliliters. But if you think of litres, that's things like your you can have litres of milk, you can have litres of juice, litres of water, lemonade. The bigger things that you measure are in litres. Now, let's have a look at this paddling pool. So it's got quite a bit of water. Do you think it's going to be millilitres or litres? I think litres. Let's have a look. We were right. Let's look at this plastic cup here now. Now that's a plastic cup that you could have at a party. Quite a short amount of liquid, quite small. So I'm thinking milliliters. Oh, Miss Dunny's on fire. Let's have a look at this fish tank. No, you can have smaller fish tanks. You can have larger fish tanks. But I'd say litres because it holds quite a bit of water. It's got quite a big capacity. There we go. Right, let's try this can. Milliliters or litres? Milliliters. What about a baby bottle? Milliliters. What about this big water tank here? If it's holding a lot, what do you think it might be, you three? Litres. We've got a sports bottle, something that some of you use in school. Do you think it's milliliters or litres? Milliliters. It'd be a bit heavy carrying loads of litres into school, wouldn't it? And a bathtub. Do you think it's milliliters or litres? Litres. Super duper. Right, let's look at the next page. So here it says, before we begin our work on volume and capacity, let's make sure we understand what these two words mean. So a measuring jug measures all the way up to 500 milliliters. So you can hold up to 500 milliliters of whatever liquid you want in this jug. And we say that it has a capacity because a capacity of 500 milliliters, because that jug will only hold up to 500 milliliters. And it says capacity is the total amount of liquid that a container can hold. So in this measuring jug that you can see on the screen now, there is 300 milliliters of liquid. Now, it's not all the way at 500. That's how much it can hold. It's only at 300. Now, that is called the volume, how much liquid is actually in that container. So the volume is how much is in it. The capacity is how much the container can actually hold. Excuse my hand gestures. So it says, what is the capacity and what is the volume of this jug? Now, if we look at let's look at the capacity first, how much it can actually hold. So if you look up the scale here, how much can it actually hold at the top? It can hold 250 milliliters. But what is the actual volume? How much liquid does it actually have in that container? Have a look at the liquid line. Go across. So this is the liquid line, go across. It has 200 milliliters in. So the volume is 200 milliliters. The capacity is 250 milliliters. And that just basically says what Ms. Dunn's just said. So a milliliter is a very, very small amount, okay? And look, it's got food colouring like Ms. Dunn mentioned. A teaspoon, one of the tiny spoons, measures 5 milliliters. That shows how little it actually holds. A small bottle of food colouring measures 50 millilitres. So that is 10 teaspoonsful of food colouring. Amazing, that, isn't it? So 1 milliliter of liquid is just a tiny drop, a teeny tiny drop. We can use a measuring cylinder, like this tall thing in the middle, to measure volume, okay? So the first thing that you need to do is work out of what each interval on the scale on the measuring cylinder represents. That's a mouthful, isn't it? So we're going to have a look at this in a little bit more detail now. So if you look, you can see the measuring cylinder here. And it says on this scale, there are 10 intervals between 0 and 100 millilitres. That means there's 10 little lines between 0 right at the bottom, because 0 means nothing, doesn't it? And 100. And then it says to work out what each interval is worth, we divide 100 by 10. Now we know if we divide 100 by 10, it equals 10. So 100 divided by 10 is 10. So each interval is 10 millilitres. So each one of these lines is 10 millilitres. Okay. So it says here, look at the level of liquid. It is at 300 millilitres plus 2 intervals. So 300 millilitres here plus 2 intervals. So let's work out what it'll be. Remember, these little lines are worth 10. So 300, 310, 320. So 320 millilitres is 320 millilitres. So this is the same scale. How much liquid is in the measuring cylinder now? So let's look at the big intervals first of all. So we know 100, 200, 300, 400 millilitres. So we know it's in the 400 millilitres because it's not reached the 500 millilitres yet. Now remember, each tiny interval is 10 millilitres on this measuring scale. So let's count in tens. So 400, 410 millilitres, 420, 430, 440, 450, 460. Superstars, well done. Let's check if we were right. So look at the level of the liquid. It is at 400 millilitres plus 6 intervals. 400 add 60 is 460 millilitres. Well done, superstars. Right, let's look at these next few ones and then you can crack on with your work. So the first thing that you need to do is work out what each interval on the scale and the measuring cylinder represents. Now we know that already, but there's a problem here. If you look at the scale now, on the last one, there was all these tiny little ones, 10 little ones between 0 and 100 and between 100 and 200. But on this one, there's not. How do we do this? Now we know that there's 0 something 100. How can we work that out? So it says on this scale there are 2 intervals between 0 and 100. To work out what each interval is worth, we divide 100 by 2. And that's the same as working out half, isn't it? So what is half of 100? It is 50. So if we are counting now, we have 0, 50, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350, 400, and so on. So let's work out how much liquid, how much volume there is in this measuring cylinder. So we know it's up to 400 here. It's not above 500 yet, so we've got to 400 and we've got one more interval that, remember, we're counting in 50s. So 400, 450. Well done, superstars. Let's check. Ms. Dunn was right. So this is the same one. Now what I'd like you to do, oops, Ms. Dunn's getting excited. What I'd like you to do, I'd like you to just pause the video for a second and see if you can work this out. Okay, you three, off you go. So what we'd do, we'd look at the level of the liquid. It is at 200 millilitres plus 1 interval. And we know that on this measuring cylinder, each interval is an extra 50, don't we? An extra 50 millilitres, sorry. So we have 200, 250. If you got that right, give yourselves a huge pat on the back. Right, this next one, oh, there's so many. Right, so this next one, if we look at it, we know that there's 4 intervals by looking at it between 100 and 0. So we divide 100 by 4. Now, if we do that, it is 25, the answer. So let's see if Miss Dunn's right, first of all. Oh, 4 interval, 100 by 4, 25. I'm a genius, aren't I? So then what we do, we look at the volume in the measuring cylinder, and we can see that it's between 400 and 450. Now, each little line is an interval, and we're going to count up in 25s, remember. So let's have a look. 400, 425, 450. Super duper do. Right, what we're going to do today, Year 3, you are going to be looking at different measuring cylinders just like this and working out the volume, okay? So there's going to be little questions like this on the paper. Have a look, see how you can work it out, and just give it your best shot. Now, some of you might want to print the sheet out, which is absolutely fine, and you can write the answers on. Some of you might not have access to a printer, which is still absolutely fine. What you can do, you can write the letter of each question, and you can write how much volume is in that measuring cylinder. Okay, I hope that helps you, Year 3. Any problems, you know where I am. Okay, superstars, take care. See you soon. Bye.